Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to begin, and thank you, Mr. Polite and Ms. Wyman, for your testimony, just by noting how weak and unpersuasive I find the arguments being offered here today to try to muddy the waters or suggest that for the federal government and the Department of Justice, the protection of our electoral processes, institutions, and workers is not a vital mission and core essential to the functioning of our democracy, absolutely worthy of high-level attention from the department. And the Department of Justice, Mr. Chairman, has the ability to protect the federal judiciary, to protect high-level federal officials, to go after organized crime and violent crime, and to coordinate the robust protection of our nation's electoral processes. And I find it necessary, having heard some of this commentary from our colleagues today, to remind my colleagues of what happened in Georgia, where amidst Donald Trump's endless barrage of lies, some of them amplified by members of this body, as he sought to hold on to power by any means necessary, Republican election officials in Georgia were warning that it constituted a threat to the lives of election workers. The House committee heard a couple of weeks ago from 2 election workers in Georgia who described the threats of lynchings that they received for doing their jobs to carry out free and fair elections in this country. So I am astounded, Mr. Chairman, that our colleagues on the Senate Judiciary Committee have decided, with the opportunity to hear from 2 senior officials about what they're doing to protect the integrity of our election processes, are instead diminishing the threat or suggesting that this isn't an appropriate use of federal resources. Now, with that said, I'd like to ask you, Mr. Polite, about what specific steps you are taking to ensure that the facilities and personnel who will be administering elections in my state of Georgia and other states across the country where there's been an elevated level of threat against election workers and facilities, to ensure that these midterms are carried out in a way that ensures the will of the American people is manifest, no matter whether that will favors one party or the other, at the ballot box, without violence or threats of violence disrupting the process.
Thank you, Senator. And I am mindful that one of the charged cases for us relates to the conduct in your state of Georgia against defendant Chad Stark. I cited earlier some of the very disturbing threats made by the defendant against a number of election officials that span the political spectrum in your state, including language such as that he threatened to put a bullet behind the ears of a number of these officials. What I can tell you is that the Election Threats Task Force is taking this conduct very seriously. Our outreach to the election officials community has been extensive, it has been robust, it has been ongoing, it will continue to be amplified. I myself will be conducting additional outreach directly to the National Association of Election Officials at the very end of this month. What we have lifted up to them are best practices related to how to best memorialize threats that they receive and how best to report those threats going forward. In addition, we have lifted up additional resources that are available to them, be it Burn JAG dollars or Helping Americans Vote Act grant dollars that can be used to help protect election officials and their staff in their facilities as we prepare for the next election cycle.
Thank you. I introduced last year the Election Worker and Polling Place Protection Act to strengthen the laws that protect the facilities and personnel critical to free and fair elections in the United States. Can you comment on the importance from your perspective ensuring that not just those personnel who are working the polls, either in a staff or a voluntary basis, but also the facilities, and that includes, Ms. Wyman, from your perspective, the software, hardware, digital infrastructure, but that the facilities are protected from threats of physical violence, of hacking, and so on. From you, please, briefly, Mr. Polite, and then in closing, you, Ms. Wyman. Thank you.
All significant priorities, Senator. And again, I'm familiar with the proposed legislation, and we look forward to working with your committee on that.
Thank you, Ms. Wyman.
And Senator, thank you for the question. That is exactly what the work we're doing with election officials across the country is, helping them with guidance and tools to not only secure their cyber infrastructure, but to have protective security advisors come on site and walk through facilities to make sure they're secure, having incident response plans in place so that they know how to respond if there is a threat of violence or something in a polling location or election office, and then really just doing last mile products where we're targeting local election officials that are medium and small sized jurisdictions to have incident response plans that they can have, phone numbers and contacts at the desk of each staff member. So we're working very hard to prepare them for the upcoming elections.
Thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.